Hello, it's Matt again from RetroOnly.com. Today we will be talking about the Sega Saturn Phantom. Before we get into that, be sure and like and subscribe to the channel. If you have a Sega Saturn or have been looking into getting one, then you probably have come across a Sega Saturn Phantom. Although the name sounds pretty cool, it doesn't exactly tell what a Sega Saturn Phantom is. So, what exactly is a Sega Saturn Phantom, and do you need it? A Sega Saturn Phantom is a universal and ribbon cable set mod chip. This mod chip allows you to play any Sega Saturn game from any region of the world on your console. What that means is this essentially makes your console region free. But what does that even mean? A mod chip is a small electronic device used to alter or disable artificial restrictions of computers or entertainment devices. Mod chips are mainly used in video game consoles, but also in some DVD or Blu-ray players. A universal mod chip is the best solution to allow any Sega Saturn game to read and to be read universally with all Saturn consoles. What does universally compatible mean though? Have you ever heard about something being region-free? The Sega Saturn Phantom mod chip makes the Sega Saturn region-free. Region-free simply means if Sega released a game in Japan, you would be able to use it in Europe, Brazil, North America, etc. If Sega wanted, they could release different game consoles or games for different countries. That is what is called a region lock. A region lock is when a game console only plays the video games that are released in a specific region. Without this Phantom mod chip, you would have to purchase the United States games, as they would only work with the United States Sega Saturn. This is where the Phantom Universal mod chip comes in. This mod chip will allow you to play any game from any region on your console. The region-free BIOS replaces the Saturn's original BIOS and allows games from any region to boot instantly on your console. There are no external switches, no messing with cartridges. All you have to do is put the game in and go. This modification can change the Sega reset button behavior a little bit, but don't worry, it still starts with a quick press. If you press and hold the button, it will toggle the machine between 50 Hz and 60 Hz output. Now the next question is, does the Sega Saturn Phantom really work? Yes, the Sega Saturn Phantom Universal mod chip really does work. The Phantom mod chip is not that hard to install on your system either. If you don't install it successfully, don't worry, it won't hurt your system at all. You will simply just have to try and reinstall it. Once it's successfully installed, you will be able to play any game from any region on your games console. But why does a Sega Saturn need this mod chip? The Sega Saturn is region locked, which means that games can only be played on hardware from the same region. Many people want to play different region games on their console though. They don't want to have to go through all the hassle of trading in all their games or buying a different console, so they simply get the Sega Saturn Phantom mod chipset. So, how do you install the Sega Saturn Phantom on Model 1 consoles? And what is needed to install the Sega Saturn Phantom? There are three basic things that you will need to install the Phantom. They are the Phantom Universal mod chip, the 20-pin ribbon cable, not the 21 that is for the Model 2 console, and then a wire cutter and a screwdriver. Understanding the design. This mod chip has three sections. The JVC and SYO solder connections will not be used in a Model 1 installation. You have seen the four white connectors. These are the 20-pin ribbon connectors you need to know. Note that the NB21 and CD21 will not be used for this installation. There are two connectors plus 5V. They are located in the corner of the chip. This is where the power is provided to the chip. Only one of those connections is required. Selecting the correct ribbon cable. There are two ribbon cables. The first is for the 20 pin and the second is the 21 pin. The 20 pin is for Model 1 and the 21 pin ribbon is for Model 2. The easiest way to know which pin you are attaching is to simply count the pins. The 21 pin ribbon will have one more pin than the 20 pin ribbon, obviously. Soldering up the plus 5 volt power to your chip, the chip comes with two connections for the plus 5 volt power. Both of the connections are located in the lower corners of the chip. This is where power will be supplied to the chip. Pick either of the two plus 5 volt solder pads provided and start by tinning one of the plus 5 volt pads on the Phantom Universal chip. Solder one end of a piece of 30 Kynar wire, or whatever wire you have selected, to the location you have tinned. The other end of the wire you will need to leave loose, as we will wind it up towards the end of the installation process. Please note, do not connect the wire to both 5 volt points, because you will only need one connection. Unplugging the ribbon cables. First, you will want to unplug your existing ribbon cable from the motherboard, and remember which way the pins are facing when the cable comes out. You will want to remember this because it will have to go back in the exact same way. Plugging in the ribbon cable. After unplugging the existing ribbon cable, it's time to put the 20 pin ribbon cable in the motherboard. Insert one end of the 20 pin cable into the MB20 connector on the chip. These connectors have a small lock that needs to be opened before the ribbon cable will slide in. We recommend using your fingernails and some gentle pressure on the left and right side of the connector to push/pull the lock out. These are not separate locks, and both sides must be pulled out at the same time. The pins on the cable should be facing up when inserted. When inserting the ribbon cable into the connector, you will want to try and wiggle the ribbon cable in to make sure they are in there all the way. Sometimes the contacts in the ribbon cable connectors can be a little tough. Always make sure the ribbon goes in straight and all the way to the back of the connector. Once the ribbon cable is fully inserted, using gentle even pressure on the sides of the connector, you will need to close the lock. Once connected, the ribbon cable should be tight and should not pull out even with a gentle tug. Even though they are not separate locks, both sides must be pushed in at the same time. Next, you will need to insert the opposite end of the 20 pin cable that is connected to the chip into the open slot on the console's motherboard. Make sure that the pins on the cable are facing the same direction they were on the original cable that you removed. You should still be able to reference the original cable if needed. Lastly, you'll want to connect the end of the original ribbon cable that's still connected to the CD-ROM drive into the CD20 side of the Phantom Universal chip. There is a small lock that needs to be opened before the ribbon cable will slide in. These two locks are not separate and will need both sides to be pulled out at the same time, just as before. Make sure the ribbon goes in straight and all the way to the back of the connector. Congratulations! You connected the ribbon cable and your Sega Saturn Phantom Universal Mod setup is now complete. Before you power up the console, you will need to make sure that all of your connections are right. Conclusion: the Sega Saturn Phantom mod chip is now installed, and you can go and play all of your favorite games no matter where they were originally intended to be played. While some people may think this is a risky job, it really is relatively simple for most people. The reward far outweighs the little risk that there is by doing this, which is why most people are willing to do it. This has been Matt from RetroOnly.com. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel.